many partnership. We have a very good partnership with the FESPACO from Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. And also we have a very good partnership with the Luxor African Film Festival in Egypt. Also with another festival in Tunisia, in Morocco, and I hope also with this festival in the future. So it's a very important festival, and that's why I'm here in Durban. I'm also involved in other festivals, international ones, as artistic director. The CROFI, Castelli Romani Film Festival Internazionale. I am director of these festivals since 8th edition. Then I'm also artistic director of the International Tour Film Festival. It's another festival in not far from Rome. Very important because it's very international, with a lot of partnership with many festivals in the world. And I am artistic director of this festival since 5 years. Then, since 5 years, I'm the artistic director of an award, a very important award, La Chioma di Berenice. It's one of the most important awards in Italy. Not the most important, but one of the, maybe after the David Donatello. David Donatello is the Italian Oscar. There's the La Chioma di Berenice, there's this award. Then I'm involved in other many festivals, not only in Italy, but also abroad. I'm involved in Cinema Italy, Italian Film Festival of Miami, in Florida, in the United States. And also I'm artistic consultant of the Italian Contemporary Film Festival of Toronto, the most important Italian film festival out of Italy. You know, in Toronto there are almost 1 million of Italians. So that's why there's this very important festival. And also for the Ministry of Culture and for the Foreign Ministry, I organize a project. The name of this project is Italian Screens. And I organize an event to promote Italian movies abroad. In the States, in Canada, in Egypt, in Tanzania. I have a very good partnership with the ZIF.
ZIF, yes.
Zanzibar International Film Festival, since 3 years. And also in other countries, in Taiwan or others. And that's the moment.
That was robust. Thank you so much. Up next, Mrs. Joy Mawela.
Oh, just said my name and surname. I've got a very much diverse background, which I was surprised to learn that myself. So like you, Antonio, started in the festival space. I was a festival programmer in Cape Town. We used to have a film market called Setengi. This was in the early 2000s when I started in the media space. I used to travel a lot to different festivals. Ouagadougou was one of the festivals that FESPACO that I was introduced to. It was actually heartwarming to go back there after almost 10 years. I attended it this year. And I mean, one thing I appreciate about FESPACO, as much as Ouagadougou is one of the poorest places, there's a big cinema culture where the entire city comes to stand still and they attend the festival. They sleep outside the city. They come from the villages. They spend the entire week in the city. It was very heartwarming to see how they have such a big culture of cinema going, which is different from South Africa, where the cinema culture is really dying slowly. And it's sad to see that way. People are not even consuming local content. And I think it kind of, motivated me to be back there after 10 years. It was a completely different experience, my first year, I think I was 21, I just turned 21. It was a big culture shock, but the cinema culture kind of made it easy for me to blend into the space. And then I moved on to do production. My plan was to spend 6 months learning production and move on to broadcasting. I worked for one of the biggest productions at the time. It was a live TV show called Free Talk with Nolene Maholana Sanjo. It was the best place to learn production. It was live every day at 5, so I had to think on my toes. There was no time to make mistakes. So it was one of the most challenging roles and like the best place to learn production and learn it quickly. And then I moved on to the SAPC at the time. I joined SAPC. I was a program buyer for a small DSTV, pay TV channel that was linked to SAPC, but it was part of DSTV. It was called SAPC Africa. We used to have the news and the entertainment channels. I traveled around the world, different festivals, MIPCOM, MIP TV in Europe. I've done markets. I think I've lost count of the festivals that I've attended at the time. I used to buy content. They used to call me the African wallet because I was actually the only broadcaster with the budget at the time. A lot of broadcasters didn't really have the kind of money that SAPC had at the time. And I get to be wined and dined by big studios, Disney Studios, CBS, Warner Brothers. So I was kind of in the right networks. As young as I was, I didn't understand the depth of the networks that I had at the time. I think that these are relationships that you keep for the longest time and no one could ever take that away. I can still make a call to Disney today to, negotiate for content. Just to say hi, hey, I'm still around, I'm in the industry. If there's ever anything new, anything, whatever, I still get invited to their screenings where we get to see all the new releases while they're still piloting. Like they have like their LA screenings, which is where they launch all the premiere TV series, and they do it like globally. They don't just do it in LA anymore. They come to different countries, they invite all the buyers, all the broadcasters. That's the only time when we come together to view the latest content that we can eventually buy for the channels. And then SAPC, I spent 15 years, I moved around a lot. I worked for all 3 channels, SAPC 1, 2, 3. I also was part of the team that actually set up the first streaming platform at the SAPC. This was in 2010. Before your Netflix of the world, before your Amazons of the world, we did the pilot test of the streaming platform at SAPC. It was called SAPC Entertainment. It was exclusive to people that had set-top boxes. We distributed set-top boxes to a few households just to test the quality and the broadcast quality of the set-top boxes. And I then moved to SAPC 3. I was in programming. I was the person that was responsible for selecting content, whether it's commissioned content, local content, like you OECD, most of the world, Free Talk at the time, Top Billing. Those were some of the properties that sat on SAPC 3. We had a 60-40 split of international content, which was the majority of the content on SAPC 3, and then 40% was local. So yeah, our local content offering was lower than SAPC 1 and 2. And I still got to engage a lot with the international studios, buying content and just getting, the latest trends, understanding the commissioning model. I think at the time we're very close to BBC. We're adapting most of the BBC strategies. And then I moved on to SABC 1 scheduling. Obviously, this was a more technical role where you have to make sure that you schedule the titles, the right slot. I think a lot of people think scheduling is just you plugging in titles on the schedule. There's a lot of work that goes into scheduling. You have to understand the entire value chain, the sales. Why do you put a certain title in prime time. How much is that slot worth? When you acquire content, this is the information that you have to understand before you even put it on the schedule. There's a lot of market intelligence research that goes into scheduling, where you have to work collectively, you have to work with the sales team, you have to work with the technical team, they have to do the QC, everything has to meet the broadcast quality, nothing goes on air without going through a very intense process, which is the behind the scenes of broadcasting. And then I then moved into the grant funding space. I worked for the National Film and Video Foundation. I was responsible for training, marketing, industry development, which is development in production. We were dispersing grant funding nationwide. I think I discovered KAFF when I was still at the SABC. I think I met you, Babumsomo, Ejozini, Ebasura Film Festival. So I know my history, I don't forget people. Yeah, so that's how I really discovered. They were one of our beneficiaries at the time, and I believe you are still one of the longest standing beneficiaries of the National Film and Video Foundation. I was involved in the bursary disbursement for graduates that have studied film and TV. We were also doing the SAFTAs, which is your South African Film and TV Awards. I was one of the people that were part of the production team. Well, obviously with my background from broadcasting, it was a live show. It was broadcast from different venues. I think when I joined the SAFTAs team, we were broadcasting from Sun City. And then I'm from production and development, obviously. We were part of the development process, developing scripts for you guys, getting experts to actually read your scripts, script edit your scripts, make sure that your scripts are production ready. Before you approach any funders, before you approach broadcasters, we make sure that we develop your story to a point that it appeals to an investor and a broadcaster. And then I was also very much involved in the distribution space because of the background in content acquisitions. We were developing market access strategies, which we would curate for a festival like your festival in Rome. We were making recommendations of South African films, put together a catalog, make sure that our filmmakers get to the festivals. We used to, NFVF has a market attendance funding, grant funding, which a lot of people are not aware of. You can travel to Rome, you can attend this market through the support of the NFVF. It is grant funding, you don't have to pay it back. You can go and learn about other cultures, other cinema cultures, watch movies from all over the world, engage with other people in the sector, broaden up your knowledge in this kind of spaces. So there is that kind of support available from the NFVF. I think they gave up to 50,000 rands, which is about, $20,000? 2,000, sorry, 2,000, yeah, which is enough for you to arrange all your travel logistics and still have some little money to, for your meals and stuff while you're there, your PTMs. And then...
Before you go ahead, Mrs. Moira, guys, Nizwile. Matanzwa. I think Nizwile, I think that I just want to echo that again, is that there is funding available that you guys, each of you sitting in this room, qualify for. The only thing you need to do is apply, right? And this is what will open up these opportunities for you to then experience and see the world in ways that you haven't already. So please, guys, I just want to emphasize that. Please, just pick that up. Make a note if you have notes. The National Video and Film Foundation is a grant fund, meaning it's money that goes to you that you don't need to pay back, for you to further your career in film. I just wanted to emphasize that point. Please continue.
So yeah, NFVF, we also got to do a lot of co-production deals with different countries. I think Italy being one of them. Yeah. We have a co-production treaty with Italy. I think we've got about 9 to 10 co-production treaties with different countries. and the most active one is Canada. We've done a lot of work with Canada. If I'm not mistaken, the last time I did my research, we're sitting at about 29 titles that were co-produced between South Africa and Canada. So those are things that you can find on the NFUF website. Learn about the co-production treaties, what incentives you can access through those treaties. They actually make your life easy. You get to, shoot at different locations. You get access to incentives, discounts, so you don't have to spend like big budgets in other countries. You get to know who the producers are there that you can partner with. And then we did a whole lot of also co-productions with broadcasters. Netflix, actually, when they started in the African territory, NFUF, and I invited them to be part of the pitching sessions when we had slates. I think you might be familiar with some of the films that came out of the NFUF slates. How to Ruin Christmas, which was initially a feature, which is now a franchise. They've done like 2 different franchises. Blood and Water, I think the list is endless now. It has been a model that worked, and it was 2 parties that came together to make sure that whatever content is funded by the NFUF has a platform, which is what a lot of producers struggle with. Securing a platform is one of the biggest challenges in this industry, and we try to make it easier for producers to access platforms. I think Canada Media Fund, we also had a co-development incentive where they contributed a certain amount for South Africans to be able to co-produce content between Canada and South Africa. And then fast forward to my most recent role. I'm currently consulting. I'm an independent producer in strategies and business development. I worked in the past 5 years. I worked in the digital creative space, which is made out of gaming, animation, virtual immersive reality. We also did digital music. Ran a festival called KCAP Digital Innovation Festival. If you get time, apply for funding, go check it out. That's where you see your VRs and all these exciting digital innovation stuff. And yeah, Stenby so happens to be one of the trainers in the animation studio, which is they run a 12-month internship program. And yeah, he will talk more about his role there. And yeah, this is me in a nutshell.
Okay.
It's not a nutshell, okay?
Very robust. I told you guys we've got a panel of experts, so I hope you guys are taking notes as they're explaining what they do, and you're preparing questions for them, because it's not often that you get abantu at this caliber sitting here within your reach. So please take advantage of this. Eh? Up next we've got about King Nonto. Please, please.
Hi everyone. My beginning with animation starts from when I was, I think, about 4 years old. Everybody knows that watching Spider-Man and all these Thundercats and all those type of stuff. So, like my brother on the other side, we spend most of our time sketching, drawing things, and get into trouble at school. With those little. Remember, we used to take like an A4 page, you cut it in the middle, you draw something in the front and the back, you put a pencil, you roll it up, and you just go like. Yeah, that was animation. Okay, that's where animation comes from. So I was one of those. And then later on, when I finished high school, I saw a movie called Toy Story. I was fascinated by the first 3D movie ever made. From there, I looked at Bugs Life and so forth. And I said to my mom, I want to do animation. And my dad didn't take kindly to it. But nevertheless, I got to study animation. Back then, it was called, the main one was like 3D Studio Max. So I got to study that, and then from there I went to corporate space where I didn't get a job then because there were not a lot of companies at that time in South Africa that actually had a career like that. There were, but clearly I didn't find any of them. So I did the best that I could do. I had a graphic design background. I could code flash animation. That's the closest I could ever get then, using 2D animation. And I did flash animation. I worked in a couple of web development companies. And I ended up in ad agencies where I did branding work, IP work. And then after that, I did live action, where I worked for a church for about like 8 years. And then from there, I was responsible for the creative visual look of the whole brand. And then thereafter that, then I went to do some corporate work. And then I decided, you know what? I remember my pencil journey, my paper. I need to go back to my paper. And then I ran a business, a Thai business, recycling for 4 years. And one of the reasons why I did that is because I was very intentional that I wanted to come up with an idea that once I was done, I literally took 2 years not being creative, but not to say that I wasn't doing anything creative. But I just want to come up with something. I wanted to shut down so I can come up with something else. And then in 2017, that's when I started KM Studios. A lot of people, they ask me what does KM stands for. K is for my name, Hosi King, my surname, Ntono, and Tiwelo. So I combined the two. And it was a coincidence because I went to CIPC, I had 5 other names, they picked out one, I was like, okay, cool, I'll take it. It's fine, it works. And then I started KM Studios, I did a lot of like government pitches, I went to like places like CEDA, they helped me to perfect my pitching confidence, so I can put it out with the art of pitching. Then from there, I got myself within the AC Animation. They taught us the journey of being producers. Some of us, we were producers, but we're not aware that we were actually producers. We're just doing the thing, we're just doing business, you know. And then after that time, then I ended up running a studio now, which is in Johannesburg, where we focus mainly on 3D animation, 2D animation. And then more recently now, we just acquired a motion capture suit, which is a suit that, if most of you are not quite familiar with it, you put on a suit whatever 3D generated image you have on the screen, and then you're able to record it in real time. So then from then, and coming back to the NLEF, I got involved, someone told me about the NLEF, I think around about 2000, after COVID, it hit. And then the NLEF, they actually gave me my first breakthrough, proper breakthrough funding, where I go to do development funding, and I came up with an animation piece called the Calabashes. And then from there, I did what most producers should do first. I would copyright everything, trademark it before I went out, and then I would just go around pitching in every festival I could get my hands on. Not an easy thing to do, but yeah.
Can I just interject there? You guys heard what he said, right? He applied for funding. I just wanted to emphasize that. Yeah, please continue.
As a footnote, you know, that's quite important. And then most creatives don't realize that we're in the business of creating all these wonderful things. And then it's nice when you see a billboard outside, but then if you're not making a living out of the billboard, then what's the point? So I had to learn that principle of I'm creating something I love, but I didn't get paid for it. So then the second tranche I got was for developing our first pilot episode. And then I did it concurrently with the PSP funding, which helped me to actually create my first pilot and then learn a lot of mistakes out of it. Trust me, for 12 months. Hired wrong people, scheduling was terrible. Yeah, seriously, you know, I had to really fine-tune my skills, but you know, with grant fundings, I'm not saying you take it to go mess with it, but it gives you the opportunity to go make those mistakes and have a cushion. Then from there, once you go out and then you get some proper work with corporate companies, you're not gonna waste anybody else's money because you get sued, you go to jail, you know, and I don't think none of us are young enough to get to jail, okay? So then from there, and then now, what we recently now doing, we do a lot of co-productions with other producers as well. That's what KM Studios stands for. So, because I believe personally that there are people with good ideas, there are producers out there, but they don't have studios like we do. So primarily what we do is we work with other producers, we take their ideas and then we help them. People can write beautiful scripts, and just because they can write scripts does not mean they actually understand the process of animation. So you find, I remember, I'll just show one incident now, then I hand it over to you. I was speaking to a producer, she wrote a beautiful script, looks amazing. And the first page, right, and then the opening scene, it had explosions, it had spaceships, it had special effects, it had 10 people dying, floating in space, and those are in animation, they're shaking their heads. And for a shock of a life, I said, your first page is all the money that you've given me. They said, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I mean, people in animation space, we're laughing because we know having to explain to someone that I'm really trying to help you to get your vision to life. But part of the most challenging thing about, in my case, I find myself being a producer and a director at the same time. So when I look at the script, I'm like, I'm gonna have to hire like 50 people just for one page. And it's like 30 seconds. Not 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So having to deal with people and actually explain to them, I had to learn that even when you have clients, your job as a producer and a director is to teach them little by little. They don't get it at once, they just want a pretty picture. They're not willing to do what the ladies do, getting the nails done, that whole process. No, they just want it instant. And with the issue of AI now, it has created, to a point now, a bad perception. It's okay to have a concept with AI. The current AI that people are using now on their phones is not for commercialization, it's just for personal use. You can come up with something nice in about 8 seconds, but eventually take the very same thing, try to make a movie for 2 hours, you're gonna fail. The testimony I'm gonna share with you is go look at the Coca-Cola ad. It's called Coming Back Home. They did it now, Coca-Cola ad, you see it now, all for the Christmas. They had 5 AI specialists, and in that process, they did that for 4 months, but they used 100 animators to clean. That math is not mathing.
Yeah.
In the olden days, in that whole ad goes about 3 minutes. So you run for 3 minutes, 10 to 1, we're not going to use like 100 animators, we're going to use less. So I'm sharing this with you because as animators, please be aware, don't fall into the trap of what animation is selling to you now, do not. Because for the next 5 years, can do wonders, not a problem. But I need to think about something. If all animation looks the same, who then will be worthy to be paid top dollar? That's the approach that KCAP Studios has done. We're not leading any traditional animation whatsoever, because we know that there's a point that's coming where everybody else will look the same, but for those who actually keep in that craft, we will be the one people come to us and pay top dollar, because they know that we can do what other guys can't do. Very, very important.
That's very, very, very important. I think it's important because right now the trajectory is the industry is shifting into a space where tools like AI, and I'm happy that you brought this up because the conversation is AI going to replace me? Will I be redundant in the space? And my response is no, AI is a tool. Like any other tool you have, right? It's about how you use it to either improve your work, speed up your pipeline, but it's there to help you. It's not there to replace you. It helps you to understand it, but it's not there for now for you to stop your entire pipeline and then go into AI. As Uking has said now, pretty much it will even be like working from scratch, doing an even longer project, doing just AI on a project. And what we focused on also as a studio myself is we use it in certain spaces where it can help us, like in the beginning, for instance, references, right? Helping us with refining the script. Maybe you just want your script to, be more professional or be a certain way and you want to get a tone and you put it on your chat GPT. But you should have typed it first, right? You would have been the one to create the script and then the app or what am I saying app, sorry. The AI will then just refine it for you. So it's a useful tool. So I guess I just also want to get into that space to say the industry is developing, it is evolving. What would you say in terms of where Africa is, in terms of developing a voice for ourselves? How do I construct this? How does someone get to a point where they're distributing local content, South African content, to your platforms? What is it that you're looking for? Maybe we can take it from there.
First of all, I want to say to my friends that sometimes I'm also an actor. I was involved in more than 10 movies, so if you need a white one, I'm ready. I'm joking. I give to the organization my last short where I was involved as an actor, so maybe the next days you can watch it and you think about it. So, what you want to know exactly?
So basically, how does someone sitting there get their content to all these festivals? And what is it that you're looking for in terms of the content itself, the authenticity of the content.
But I want to say another thing. I agree with you when you say that technologies as AI, you have to not to be afraid of this, because it depends how to use it. So it's very important, because most of the people are afraid about AI that can substitute someone in this sector. So I think for me it's important every kind of content by for example, by your country or by you. In my, for example, in my festival, I use a lot of resources as short movies, long movies, documentary, video clip, or something like that in my festival, especially in the Africa one, in the Rome Africa Film Festival, because for me, I think it's not only my personal opinion. Africa is a continent full of creativity, more than other countries. You have maybe someone thinks that you have a gap, but this is an opportunity to you to fill this gap. And during the year, I see a lot of materials from Africa, and all the material is very interesting. And I think that you can go on, and you can go over other kind of cinema in the world, because another thing, that Africa is full of young people, and this is very important, more than America, more than Europe. So you have a lot of energy, a lot of resources, mental resources, and a lot of creativity to show and to send us. I think that in the beginning, European cinema or American cinema could be I don't know how to say, a referment for you. But in the future, it could be changed, because now we are looking to Africa. Once you look to Europe or America, but now we are looking to Africa, because there are a lot of interesting things that you are doing, and especially for me, that organize a festival such as the Rome Africa Film Festival, are very, very interesting.
I think I also want to extend that question to both King and Mrs. Mawela, with regards to what does someone that wants to get their content funded or get their content on broadcast, for instance, what do they need to consider for that to happen? And I will have to apologize to my esteemed guests and all of you. As your host with the most, I have a plane to catch. So I'm going to have to leave the stage now, but I'll leave them with the question, and you guys can take over from there.
Without the drive. Okay. So I guess the first thing, the most important thing that needs to happen when you get into any space, it doesn't matter whether it's broadcasting, whatever, I think research is very key. I think most of the projects that I happened to be in were informed by a very intense research. I worked for the Vets Incubator, where everything was guided by research. So research is very key. Understand your market, understand your audience, understand the platforms. Don't just dive into things because, yes, you want to get your work out there. We're all hungry, we all want to make money. But I think everything that you do has to be well informed. There has to be a clear strategy, because if you sit on the other side as a panelist in any business, there's always someone who's going to go through your work. They need to understand your work. It shouldn't be all over the place. It has to have a proper flow, and it has to be well informed. So for example, with the processes at the NFEF, with the funding process, there is an independent panel that looks at your work and there's a criteria. I think even with festival selections, everything has a selection criteria. There's requirements that you need to understand before you even put together a proposal. I think sometimes we're quick to run to ChatGPT AI and just tell it, listen, please help me with an application. Take that criteria, take the requirements, put it on ChatGPT, also give it a guideline because you have to speak to those tools. As much as we've got, all these tools now that make everything easier, you still have to communicate what your idea is, what you're looking for, what the funders are looking for. It's very important. Going back to SAPC, where we used to sit every week and go through thousands and thousands of proposals, and we would look at it based on what is currently on our schedule, because we also do a market intelligence. We look at what audiences are available, what the market is looking for, what the trends are globally, not just locally, and we then try and localize it. Obviously, there's always room for local and international content. So there's a thorough process that goes into that, and it's a collective effort. It's not just a room with one person making a decision. It's a collective of experts from the different value chain. Everyone from commissioning office, which are your commissioning editors, the sales team, the finance team, the channel team comes together at the beginning at the end of the year, where we go to a summit, where we kind of really look at all the schedules, all the content, what the finances look like, because everything has to be informed by budget. So you have to create content based on what is available in the market, who is your audience, what kind of budgets are available, what are the trends. Sometimes your content might not be part of the latest trend. Whatever is sitting on TikTok now might not be relevant to you, but you always have to try and align to what your investor is looking for, because they still have the last say. You can come up with a million ideas that don't fit into any strategy. You might be lucky if they consider it part of the new strategy. And often we kind of look at things, it might not be fit for our strategy this year, for example, but in the next year, we might just consider your idea to say, oh, there were a lot of proposals that spoke to horror movies. Maybe there's a demand for horror movies. Let's introduce horror movies. I guess horror movies are a good example for the South African market, because we don't really consume horror movies. I think we do it to some extent. I've seen it with the KZN content. There's always a umkovu, let's still consider it horror. I think it was coming up a lot in the telenovelas. Sisibaya was setting the trend at the time, and it has become a trend in some of the telenovelas too. I might not like it, it's not my favorite thing to see. I think I was a fan of Isibaya at some point, but I had to stop watching because those Mukovus were really freaking me out. I couldn't even be in the house alone, but it was a trend, and it created talkability. It was trending. The Black Twitter, everyone was talking about, whatever was happening on TV. So it's important for you to constantly be on those, platforms to see what people are talking about. The people that you work with, it's also important. I think during the opening night, someone mentioned that producers, broadcasters are always looking for bankable talent. So sometimes we also have to align. As much as we want to grow new talent, we want to make sure that everyone has a seat in this space. You always have to go with things that have been tested and tried, and there are things that are showing even return on investment. Because sometimes we just produce, we just want to make money from production, and then you forget that there's an investor that you have to pay back. And often we don't even approach the people with the loans, your ITCs, your private investors that are expecting return on investment, because we're just doing this out of passion. We don't want to, I don't know, it's always like you moving from one project to the other. It is important for you to also research what your investors are looking for, what budgets are available. Don't go to the NFEF and apply for 20 million, knowing very well that they only give you 1.8 million. They set your caps amount, you have to align to that. Yes, you can submit a 20 million budget or 10 million budget form, but you always have to give a finance plan that breaks down how you're going to fundraise for your movie. Because you just, obviously, there's always expectation that they'll make a plan for me. If my idea is too nice, they're going to love it, and they will give me 10 million, which doesn't happen with certain organizations. It's grant funding. They've said that the cap amounts for you. Read those policies, understand the policies, understand what the requirements are. I think often we see that people are just ignorant. You just putting together whatever makes sense to you. It makes it hard for the panels or the people that are adjudicating your work to actually, understand your work and give you funding. And people would apply with the same thing over and over. Even when you get feedback, you still submit the same thing. And always, I think you always have to be more innovative and take in feedback. I think it was actually interesting when I was in broadcasting, when most of the established studios were the people that engaged mostly with the channels. And they would take in the feedback, go back and implement it. And there was a lot of ignorance coming from emerging, studios, where it's like, you know what, it's either you like my work or you don't like it. And they would not take criticism well. They would not even taking notes in meetings. They were not, because you came there with a mindset of my project, I'm here, and I believe in my project. No one's going to tell me how to tell my story. But you have to align to what is happening at the time in that environment. And sometimes you have to play along, unfortunately. You have to adjust, you have to, just be there and make sure that your work speaks to whatever the market wants at the time. Because if even the funders themselves have done their research, for you to be in that boardroom, you were considered because your work might have potential to sit on a certain slot or to be considered for future plans that they have planned. It's not often that you get called to a pitch because someone just knows you personally or someone just likes you because of your personality. Yes, sometimes it's about networks, it's about, giving people an opportunity, but use that to the best of your ability. Take those notes, go back, make the changes, make sure you align all the time. If it's not aligned, go back whenever there's a call out that speaks to what you do, because there's always a guideline. Everyone that does call outs, everyone that does funding, investors, everyone has an objective, everyone has a vision that might be different to what you do, but sometimes you find that there is an alignment and you get lucky. The first time when you apply, your project gets approved. And then you constantly have to communicate with your investors. I think the one mistake that people do is that when you know there are problems in your production or you are stuck somewhere or things are just not coming together, you keep quiet, you come when it's like now you want your money. You don't care whether you are wrong or right. You're now demanding money, knowing very well that you've gone over budget, you've lost talent, you were just not gelling with your team, you're the most horrible producer that anyone would ever want to work with. And then we tend to come to attack broadcasters and demand money, knowing very well that you are at fault. But I think communication is very key. When you know that things are going wrong, you have to alert your investors, your producers, to say, hey, listen, I think I under-budgeted, I over-budgeted. Can we make a plan? We are all humans, we all can listen to people that have challenges, and there's always room for change, and we also have allowance to deviate from the original plan. There's always a 20% allowance, whether it's in developing a curriculum for an academic institution. If it doesn't fit into the latest trends, I mean, AI is slowly being introduced in any industry. And we can't stick to how we used to do things and you're like, no, there's no room for change, no one. But communication, I think, is better than keeping quiet and creating more problems for yourself to a point where you get blacklisted from doing any business with anyone. Because we all make mistakes and it is not wrong for you to approach your friend and say, listen, I have made a mistake here. How do we work around it? How do we find a solution to this thing? So I'm going to leave it there. I think we can dive deep into some of the processes and just giving tips on how you can actually how your work can appeal to funders or investors or to platforms like festivals and any other space that is available for developing audiences.
From my end, I would say one of the key words I have adopted through the years is collaboration. One of the key things that's really killing, I would say, African content is people not willing to collaborate with one another. If, for example, my experience says I know how to run a studio, right? I do write scripts, but I might not be very good in writing drama scripts. I'm the action man. They know me at the office. Give me action, I'm your guy. So I'm creating this scenario so that I want people not to think now very clearly. Let's say you have a nice idea, I like it. You come to me, you come to a studio, then you tell me about your idea. Then I begin to communicate with you to say, look, this project that you have, I just do my producing thing, I tell you this thing's gonna cost you 20 million, right? And then if you're not willing to actually hear me out as someone who's got a bit of experience, to assist you to get to the next level. And also understanding the different people that you need for this project. Because a lot of people always say like, it's my project, it's my project. I always tell people like, when you start talking about investors when they come and they give you 20 million, it's not your money, it's his money. And he's giving you the money because he wants to multiply his money. But he likes your idea so much, he believes in it, that if it's done correctly, you get what you want, which means you'll be creating a masterpiece and everybody's happy. At the same time, he's going to get his money back. But if you do not have the right people to advise you and tell exactly what you should and shouldn't do, and kind of like guide you, and when you're dealing the business of production for television, it is not a sprint, trust you me. I mean, one of the concepts she knows very well. I've been at it for the past 5 years. I was only able to sit now and negotiate with SABC this year and Playroom because I had to refine it. Because I met very credible executive producers. One looked at it and said like, hey King, I think maybe you can add this and this and this thing. I didn't say like, hey, in my class, I was top of the game, you're not going to tell me anything. Exactly what you were busy alluding to. I listened. Because these people have won awards, they know exactly what they're talking about. Me, as an emerging producer, yes, I've done some great work, but in order for me to get to the next level, I need to be aware. So this thing of, their idea, yeah. Well, guess what? You go to the grave with your idea. You can't do that. And this is where a lot of young Africans actually have a problem with, because they can't realize that when you're a creative, they've done it. From Michael Jackson, his first album, Quincy Jones is running the show. From Destiny's Child, you know who was running the show. You can name all the creatives in the world. Those who were fortunate, who had a lot of money like Elon Musk, that they're able to do something because their parents had money, there's only a few. But for everyone that says, here in KZN, I want to get development funding, what do? Then first you need to understand exactly what we're talking about now, what we're going to get into. The importance of even when you have an idea. It sounds crazy. You talk to your parents, your friends, speak that idea, and hear what they say. In the moment when you speak your idea, say, hey, I've got an idea of my grandmother. Okay, what about your grandmother? My grandmother, my food's so nice, every time when you smell the food, and then everybody comes and go eat. Boring. Pitch another one. I've got my grandmother. When she cooks this food, and then she makes this wonderful cake. When people eat, they fart bombs. Oh, okay, you got my attention. Okay. Here's another. My grandmother, when you take these cookies, you eat it. When you fart, you fly in the sky, and then rainbows will pop up in the sky. Now that's interesting. Because you're selling a common idea, but you're stimulating the human. Because animation, that's what it is. The greatest animation movies you've ever seen, they might not have the most expensive visual effects, but they need to move emotionally, they need to connect with you. When you walk out of that movie, you must go like, wow, I felt something. When there's a sad moment, you need to be sad. If you need to be happy, be happy. And that's the process that a lot of people don't realize, that getting your script is very important. Even if you're not the best script writer yet, but exactly, just write a 2-pager, 3-pager, take your time, pace yourself, watch a lot of animation. Trust me, watch a lot of animation, go online. There's people that are giving these courses for free. Just go sit there. You don't, like I said, you don't have to be a professional writer. At least when you have that, and then you're going to go to the next phase, which is you have to do concepting of the characters. Now, a lot of people, they would, for example, they will come up with a character that lives underwater, but the story is in the city. These things are not linking, right? And then we come, we say like, that's not making sense. And then you're telling a South African story like that, right? And already in my head, I'm seeing merchandise, I'm seeing these other things, but I'm trying to connect like, this African story lacks something, right? It lacks something. But if, using our totems and everything else that we do in terms of heritage, you put a little bit of spice in it, and people are like, this guy turns into a crocodile. Now you got something, right? So now the interest gets built up. But a lot of people, they get caught up in the trap that everything about African stories has to be mystical. Not really. I can tell you right now, there's probably a young girl somewhere in the township who's got a very interesting story, a very emotional story. Imagine taking that, writing a beautiful animation drama, because animation you do have. You have drama, you've got comedy, you've got action, you've got thriller, you've got for adults. There's different varieties. A lot of people always focus on superheroes and people flying around. Don't do that. With the kind of budgets we have in Africa, we don't have money for Superman, okay? And one other thing is that once you go through that process, then at least now, knock on doors, talk to people who have done it before, so that when you get to the NLEFs, ask them, what is a concept Bible? A lot of people want to know, they don't even know what a concept Bible is. And I can tell you, all of you in here today, you can go online, go Google Concept Animation Bible, boom, there it is. So a lot of producers, a lot of creators don't get funding because they have the wrong paperwork, or they're not complying to anything. See, that's the lesson I had to learn. Get the right paperwork. Once you start there, then you can move to the next level. Then there's seminars like this, attend them, ask questions, and then only then you're going to move to the next level. Once you are there, then I think the business of animation, particularly maybe in this case, some of you are here, don't be shy to get a little. I always tell even the people in my studio, I force them actually. I say, I pay your salary, so what you're going to do is, you're forced to buy books. Plain books, and every Friday, we have a session where for an hour, which is drawing. And I'm not asking all of them to be perfect artists, no. The fact is to get them the ideas they have in their heads on paper. Once you get the habit of taking your idea and putting it on a piece of paper, it becomes culture to you. And I can tell you all the studios, that's what you're going to get paid for. And then once you go through that process, then it's easier to knock to the doors like NLEF, the portals online, and then I think the conversation now talks about NLEF, but it's a very important vehicle. Because if you don't even understand what the film industry is about, it's about you using your creativity to actually put food on the table. That's what I normally tell people. It's not about you made a nice thing. No, all of us, we have stories here. You have to sit around with all the stories. You've got bad ones, good ones. It's all about coming up with something unique that you can share with someone. People, they get so captivated by it. They're like, yeah, this is the one. And they come, they're willing to pay. And they can drive your Porsche or your Polo Golf. It doesn't matter what you fancy. But that's going to be the most important steps, I think, for young talent in KZN. master those things. When I always tell people, a photographer has a room in the animation space. If you're a good photographer, with animation you can do lighting, you can be brilliant. If you are a fashion designer, you have a part in the pipeline of animation. If I make a character from anywhere else in Africa, I come to people who are fashionistas. I'm not going to talk to an animator. I talk to the ladies with the fashion trends and they do their stuff. That's the people I go to. If I need a storyboard artist, I'm going to go to someone who can draw. If I go to someone who's very good in English editing or any other language, I want to go to people to edit the language. So people think animation is just people sitting behind the desk. The answer is no. Every single artistic discipline you can think of, it's there in animation. So we all have a role and a room to play. So don't be scared of it. My thing, as I was sharing with a lot of guys, is start now, go online, there's free softwares like Blender and so forth, go play with it, mess around with it. Feel free to make mistakes. If your character looks like this, it's fine, continue. If you want to get it to look maybe like me, I don't know. It depends what you like. But start somewhere. For the industry to go, we need to create more content. And don't try to be fancy, please. I always tell people, before, we're going to move to the next thing now, is I want to give you a simple history. In America, back in the days, they used 24 frames per second, basically drawing 24 frames to make 1 second, right? And the Japanese, right now, when they see anime and manga, they're thinking that is the coolest thing. But what most people do not know, the Japanese wanted to create 2D animation like the Americans, but they didn't have budget. You know what they did? They sat there and whatever what they were saying. And someone came with a clever idea. He says, why must we draw 24? Let's draw 12. And in between, we freeze the characters for 4 seconds. And then we keep all the graphics at the behind still, and we only move the people in the front. To create chaos, you create movement. Instead of 12 frames per second, you create about 6. And at the point of impact, you don't show the impact, you just show like a black thing or a white thing on the screen, and then you see the character falling like poof. And I can tell you there was a brilliant Japanese guy like, what does it know? Yeah, that's what they did. So they didn't have budget, they came up with solutions. So my question is simple. Why then we as Africans, we don't have budget, but we're forced to be like Disney? You're not Disney. I'm not Disney. So I'm sharing this with you because in my company, we have to come up with solutions that says, okay, I would like to have Disney, but I don't have a Disney budget. So what are we going to do? So now what we do in my studio, we're combining some of the Japanese techniques and a little bit of something else. So learn from the Japs, and that's why they can write a script over like 13 episodes, they can drag it to 26. The last episode you saw, they were looking at each other and they were trying to bring for 5 minutes. For whatever reason, we just sit there and just watch. But they did it. It became their art form. So even for us, don't follow the 24 frames per second. Maybe as Africans we can come up with 18 frames per second. We can come up with 8, I don't know. What I'm saying is, start there, learn from them, and I think you can do that. From here, from the township. You can.
I have a follow-up to that. I guess there was an emerging filmmakers program that we introduced while I was still with the National Funder. And I think when the investors started coming on board, the first question was, why do South Africans benchmark against Hollywood movies? Have we ever made the kind of money that Hollywood makes? The room went quiet. And then we went back to the drawing board. We pulled out the box office figures. We checked what was the highest ranking film. I think at the time it's a different film, Meet the Kandesamis. Is it? Yeah, Meet the Kandesamis. I think it did a gross of about 20 to 30 million at the time. And they're like, why can't we benchmark against the data that is available? Here are the numbers. They have been tested and tried. Why are we benchmarking against Hollywood? for them as investors, it was important to understand the South African landscape. To say, this is where we are, but we are sitting right there. People are asking for 30 million budgets. People are pushing up their budgets so that they can qualify for whether it's a DTIC, a rebate, or the ITC loan. And we wanted to come with a more realistic approach. We said, because this is an emerging market, let's benchmark against what is possible, what is achievable, which is when we came up with a slate of, I think at the time it was 6 films that were produced. I think most of the Netflix stuff was from that emerging filmmaker slate. And then we put together a kitty. It was a one-way stop, where DTIC contributed the rebate, ITC contributed, they were obviously cash flowing the rebate, NFEF came to the party with the 1.8 million. So you know that NFEF has 1.8 million grant funding available. There's the ITC 2 million that was available at the time, was the equity, whatever, and then there was the DTIC also contributing 2 million. So all of it together, we were able to put together a 6 million budget for producing the movies that we did, that slate that we did. And then we brought on board the broadcaster, because we knew it was going to be a challenge for the producers to approach the broadcasters individually. We took the slate, we pitched it to the broadcasters, and Netflix came on board at the time. That's how your baby mamas were born. That's what's the Bend Onion guys. Because I came from broadcasting background, it was easy for me to bring in the people that are familiar with broadcasting, because if you ever want to work with a producer that understands deadlines, you have to work with someone who's familiar with broadcasting systems, because broadcasters will give you a slot and a TX date. You have to deliver that day, because people can develop forever. They can spend 10 minutes developing a script that will never make it to any platform. So in order for us to fast track and make sure that everything is realistic, was to bring everyone to the table together. Let's create a one-stop shop where everyone is putting something in there, and then the broadcasters were able to commit the pre-sales also, which was 30% of that budget. You were guaranteed a broadcast platform, you were guaranteed revenue. We knew that we're not going to spend too much money, and we're not going to even make from box office. And COVID happened, obviously. Netflix was able to counter offer what was supposed to be released in cinema. They came and counter offered, I think, as much as they don't share the numbers, it was double whatever you could have made on box office, benchmarking against that 20 million. So sometimes it's a matter of collective effort, where people come together in one room, you put your heads together, you put your monies together, you bring all the parties that are involved in the value chain, and you say, let's come together, this is a property that will sit on this platform, bring all your experts on board. The nice thing also with broadcasters is that they bring the commissioning editors, they will manage the editorial process. You're not talking to an audience that doesn't exist. You have people in the room that understand the market. They will guide you through the process. It's not always easy. Sometimes you might find a commissioning editor that doesn't really gel with you. They don't understand your story. They don't understand it. But there's always ways to make it happen. There's always ways to escalate things. You don't have to be stuck with one person that you're not gelling with, someone who's not there to invest their experts and their time. Someone who's not reachable, someone who's just not responsible or responsive. You always have to report them back to the investor, because we all have to account to somebody. If your commissioning editor is useless, you have a right to report them. If your investor is also, not playing along, or they're not committing to their part, there's always ways to escalate things, and there's always a solution to any problem. I think, Anton, I'm going to allow you to speak And maybe since we don't have a moderator, we can start engaging with the audience and take questions from the floor.
Let me add just one more thing at the end. I want to stress what you say in the beginning of your speech about your key word, collaboration. I think that it is also my key word, because collaboration is the most important thing between festival, other kind of platforms, broadcaster, producers, distribution, because if you go on alone, you don't go in any place. If you go on together, you can arrive at the destination. And not only in the same country, but also with other countries. So I think that collaboration, for me, collaboration with other festivals is essential. It's the most important thing, because if we can make a network of, for example, African Film Festival in the world, because as I said before, I have a partnership with FESPACO and other African festivals, but not only. I have a collaboration also with other African festivals in Italy. I have a collaboration with African Film Festival in Paris, in London, in New York. If you can make a network together, you can share materials, but also best practices. And you can go on and you can arrive at your better destination.
100%, 100%. I think, questions? Yes.
They have a mic there. Oh, share this one.
Sambona. My name is Talent Dube. I have two questions. It's not specified to any of you, but from what you have said. I am a self-taught animator. I'm currently working on my dead animated film, which is like 26 minutes long, and people have been saying, that is too long, you know. But yeah, I've utilized AI in fast processing some of the, the processes. So regarding animation, I've also been talking about animation on TikTok, teaching people basic of animation. I just did it, let me try it. And so many people were so amazed that we always see this thing on TV. We just so complicated. It is so far from us, But the way you put it, you make it so simple. We understand this. We have interest in learning it, So regarding that, Osis spoke about a grant funding from NFVF, where they fund your trip to go to another film festival to communicate, to connect with other filmmakers. So my question is there a funding where maybe they send like certain people to productions made overseas to learn new skills, certain skills that they're gonna bring back to the country, and teach those people? Because I'm doing animation, and mostly I'm doing it for social media to build engagement and all that. But that's not my long-term plan. I don't think I'm gonna be able to keep up with that level. So I would like to scale up, to grow up, to work with more people. I like Kulu VFX movies. They don't have to go into complicated, but that's what I like. So, so my question is around there, is there support on the field of, acquiring skill that already know how to do it, And then my second question is directed to Opoti. You said you have an animation studio in Joburg. I've heard on one of the guys here say Joburg is busy in terms of animation. So my question there is, how then do you move from where you're just doing your own thing, you're just making your own drawings, your own animation, to scaling up to have a studio, to bringing people in to work under you? How did that happen for you? Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Several of them. It took me about, I would say, 12 years. 12 years. to have my, if I say my studio, and people that work under me, right? One of the key things that what we have picked up at the studio, we have a lot of interns that come. We've got a lot of people who are self-taught, they come. In the beginning, I was working with Innovation SE in some of the programs, but now I'm also now offering the services of training from other organizations as well. What I will tell you is that there are two types of individuals that literally, when we deal with them, we're noticing there's a pattern. Those that come from these amazing schools, from the animation schools and other educational institutes, they will learn how to work with my specific softwares, right? But because of how the industry has shifted, we ourselves, we used to use Maya in Cinema 4D, but then we had to move away from it. Then Blender, Houdini, those are the ones that are actually focusing on the Android engine. And you have to go through extensive, I'll say, probably an internship or maybe training on the job type of program, because there are a lot of it. Right now, there is one that came out now through the interview. I think it's a bursary one. Go Google it, check it out. I would advise you that you actually find bursary, which will get within the NVF, right? And there's also, I think, once you have to guide me, yeah. And then there is one called, it's SCAII.org.za. They also have got programs where they teach, they've got an internship program, they run for 12 months, and then they teach you to do visual effects. Why am I mentioning this thing? When you are self-taught, right, there's certain fundamentals that you are gonna miss. Trust me, every time when you have internships coming who are self-taught, they will miss certain things, right? Because remember, when you work by yourself, you create your own rules. But when you work in a production, there's 40 of you. And if you don't understand which position you will be playing or what role or even what software, simple thing. I know of companies where they will fire you if you name a file wrong. You'll be fired. You know why? Because if there's 23 people that have been doing this particular thing, and then all of you are just fucking do it wrong, maybe you're one in front of a two, fire dash it or whatever, and then everything gets stuck, and then we spend the whole day trying to figure out how is it. We find it is you. Our producer will come after you, my brother, and it's not going to be nice. You see?
Collective effort.
Yeah, because you have destroyed everything. So the importance of you getting into a program where you'll be either in an internship program or whether you will be in on-the-job training, even if you're self-taught, I would advise you, and I always tell everybody, please get yourself in the studio. Even if you can go to a studio and say like, even if you don't pay me, just be willing to serve, because the amount of knowledge you're going to get from there. Because if you're talking about scaling up, with me, summarizing what I had to go through, I was by myself, and then in my company, I was the only one that learned 3D animation, the only one. Everybody else that are in my company right now, most of them, they do graphic designing and all that stuff, but they had the desire to learn it. And immediately when that happened, I spent like 2 years with two guys and one lady that I know they're quite brilliant. Then from there, it's just a question of multiplication. But even with them, I had to make sure that I get them online courses so they can beef up their skill set. So your challenge that you will find is that when you get people from, like most of my stuff, if I were to put my stuff, you're going to look on Facebook, you're not going to find a lot of things. You know why? Because there's an investor and a hype and economics factor to it, right? If I do something nice on TikTok now, people say, woo woo, are they paying me? No, right? If I do something from a corporate, I get a client, I do something for 30 seconds in G. I pay them 300,000 rand. I did something that's the woo don't see, but I'm earning money. You see? So a lot of young people always tell them it's okay to put something on social media, but be careful, because The hype that you're getting from social media doesn't say that you're able to compete with a student who's got like a PhD or whatever from an animation school, something like that. Because when you get paired up with those two people and it's you and them, companies most of the time always prefer them. Why? Because they know that they are going through training where they work with other people. And that's the most important thing. So my advice to you is simple, is go to those platforms, Google them, have a look at them, and then if you can, even if you are self-taught, make sure, prioritize, this is my advice to you, you can use it or use it, it's up to you, but don't focus a lot on creating animation that is long. Rather do 30 seconds and make it amazing. So what I'm challenging you to do is, instead of you spending 6 months doing something for 12 minutes or 3 minutes, take 6 months and do something that is world class. Because when someone hires you, they know that you can take that 30 seconds and multiply it many times. That's how they can confirm that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, ngiyabonga kakhulu. Thank you so much. Mhlawumbe i-follow-up question from Nigeria on that one.